All right. So Alice was just saying that Jesus' name was Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. And Imogen thought that was just terrible neglect to a child to make him write all of that when he was in first grade, right? And so our main character our narrator was telling Alice, you didn't need to say all that stuff. Why not? Alice said,
thought she wanted to know.
Patting her hair. I thought Imogen wanted to know. By that time, everybody was hot and tired, and most of the baby angels had to go to the bathroom. So Mother said that we would take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll start over, she said, looking sort of hopeless, and go right straight through without stopping, won't we? Well, we never did go right straight through. The 5-minute recess was a big mistake because it stretched to 15 minutes, and Imogen spent the whole time smoking cigarettes in one of the Johns in the ladies' room. Then Mrs. Homer McCarthy went to the ladies' room and opened the door and smelled something funny and saw some smoke, and she ran right to the church office and called the fire department. We were singing Angels We Have Heard on High when what we heard was a fire engine pulling up on the lawn of the church with the siren blaring and the red lights flashing. The firemen hurried in and made us all go outside, and then they dragged a big hose in the front door and went looking for a fire to put out. The street was full of crying baby angels and shepherds climbing all over the fire truck and firemen, and all the ladies in the potluck committee and neighbors who came to see what was going on, and Reverend Hopkins, who ran over from the parsonage in his pajamas and his woolly bathrobe. Nobody knew what had happened, including the Herdmans, but I guess they figured that whatever it was, they had done it, so they left. Why in the world did you call the fire department? Mother asked Mrs. McCarthy when she finally heard the whole story. Because the ladies' room was full of thick smoke. It couldn't have been, Mother said. You just got excited. Didn't you know it was cigar smoke? Mrs. McCarthy stared at her. No, I didn't. I don't expect to find cigar smoke in the ladies' room of the church. She whirled around and marched back to the kitchen. But by that time, the kitchen was fuller of smoke than the ladies' room because, while everybody was milling around in the street, all the applesauce cake burned up. Of course, the ladies at the potluck committee were mad about that. Mrs. McCarthy was mad, and Alice said her mother would be good and mad when she heard about it. Most of the baby angels' mothers were mad because they couldn't find out what had happened, and somebody said Mrs. Hopkins was mad because Reverend Hopkins was running around the streets in his pajamas. It turned out to be the one great big sinful thing Alice kept hoping for. Mrs. Wendelkin read Alice's notes, got on the telephone that very night, and called up everybody she could think of in the Ladies' Aid and the Women's Society. And she called most of the flower committee and all the Sunday school teachers and Reverend Hopkins. And Reverend Hopkins came to see Mother. I can't make head or tails of it, he said. Some people say they set the fire in the ladies' room. Some people say they set the fire to the kitchen. One lady told me that Imogen threw a flower pot at Ralph. Mrs. Wendelkin says all they do is talk about sex and underwear. That was Hobie Carmichael, Mother said, talking about underwear. And they didn't set fire to anything. The only fire was in the kitchen, where the potluck committee let their applesauce cake burn up. Well, Reverend Hopkins looked unhappy. The whole church is in an uproar. Do you think we should call off the pageant? Certainly not, Mother said. By that time, she was mad too. Why, it's going to be the best Christmas pageant we've ever had. Of all the lies she's told so far, that was the biggest whopper of them all, but you had to admire her. It was like General Custer saying, "Bring on the Indians." Now, General Custer famously was defeated by the Indians. Maybe so, Reverend Hopkins said. I'm just afraid that no one will come to see it. But he was wrong. Everybody came to see what the Herdmans would do. On the night of the pageant, we didn't have any supper because Mother forgot to fix it. My father said that was all right. Between Mrs. Armstrong's telephone calls and the pageant rehearsals, he didn't expect supper anymore. When it's all over, he said, we'll all go someplace and have hamburgers. But Mother said when it was all over, she might want to go someplace and hide. We've never once gone through the whole thing, she said. I don't know what's going to happen. It may be the first Christmas pageant in history where Joseph and the wise men get in a fight and Mary runs away with the baby. She might be right, I thought, and I wondered what all of us in the angel choir ought to do in case that happened. It would be dumb for us to just stand there singing about the Holy Infant if Mary had run off with him. But nothing seemed very different at first. There was the usual big mess all over the place, baby angels getting poked in the eye by other baby angels' wings and grumpy shepherds stumbling over their bathrobes. The spotlight swooped back and forth and up and down till it made you sick to your stomach to look at it. And as usual, whoever was playing the piano pitched Away in the Manger so high we could hardly hear it, let alone sing it. My father says Away in a Manger always starts out sounding like a closet full of mice. But everything settled down, and at 7:30, the pageant began. While we sang Away in the Manger, the ushers lit candles all around the church, and the spotlight came on to be the star. So you really had to know the words to Away in the Manger because you couldn't see anything, not even Alice Wendelkin's Vaseline eyelids. After they sang 2 verses of O Little Town of Bethlehem, and then we were supposed to hum some more O Little Town of Bethlehem while Mary and Joseph came in from the side door, only they didn't come right away. So we hummed and hummed and hummed, which is boring and also very hard, and before long doesn't sound like any song at all, more like an old refrigerator. I knew something like this would happen, Alice Wendelkin whispered to me. They didn't come at all. We won't have any Mary and Joseph, and now what are we supposed to do? I guess we would have gone on humming till we all turned blue, but we didn't have to. Ralph and Imogen were there all right, only for once they didn't come through the door pushing each other out of the way. They just stood there for a minute as if they weren't sure they were in the right place because of the candles, I guess, and the church being full of people. They looked like the people you see on the 6 o'clock news, refugees sent to wait in some strange, ugly place with all their boxes and sacks around them. It suddenly occurred to me that this was just the way it must have been for the real Holy Family, stuck away in a barn by people who didn't much care what happened to them. They couldn't have been very neat and tidy either, but more like this Mary and Joseph. Oops. Imogen's veil was cockeyed as usual, and Ralph's hair stuck out all around his ears. Imogen had the baby doll, but she wasn't carrying it the way she was supposed to, cradled in her arms. She had it slung over her shoulder, and before she put it in the manger, she thumped it twice on the back. I heard Alice gasp, and she poked me. I don't think it's very nice to burp the baby Jesus, she whispered, as if he has colic. Then she poked me again. Do you suppose he could have had colic? I said, I don't know why not. And I didn't. He could have had colic or been fussy or hungry, like any other baby. After all, that was the whole point of Jesus, that he didn't come down on a cloud like something out of Amazing Comics, but that he was born and lived, a real person. Right away, we had to sing while shepherds watched their flocks by night, and we had to sing very loud because there were more shepherds than there were anything else, and they made so much noise banging their crooks around like a lot of hockey sticks. Next came Gladys from behind the angel choir, pushing people out of the way and stepping on everyone's feet. Since Gladys was the only one in the pageant who had anything to say, she made the most of it. Hey, unto you a child is born, she hollered, as if it was, for sure, the best news in the world. And all the shepherds trembled, sure afraid of Gladys, mainly, but it looked good anyway. Then came 3 carols about angels. It took that long to get the angels in because they were all primary kids, and they got nervous and cried and forgot what they were supposed to do and bent their wings in the door and things like that.